Rupees are one of the most important items in Tears of the Kingdom. They allow you to buy almost any armor set in the game, as well as being your main source of arrows and some materials. In the past, the main way of obtaining rupees was through breaking pots or opening chests, but this is completely different in Tears of the Kingdom. Instead of finding small amounts of rupees lying around, there are a ton of ways to get them. You can trade in almost any piece of armor, material, or meal for rupees. You can play minigames, defeat enemies that drop rupees, do quests, and more. As I played through the game, I started to notice a lot of consistency with how rupees work. The more I looked into it, the more interested I became, and I started to wonder, how much is a rupee actually worth? To avoid having misleading data, I need to get information from multiple sources. I came up with a couple different methods to get the value of a rupee, and once I'm finished, I will average the prices to get a final answer. The first thing I thought of was getting the prices of some in-game items and comparing them to their real-life counterparts. But we have one small issue. Which items do we use to compare? So many items don't actually have a real-life equivalent, or the amount shown in the icon is so small that it can't possibly be the full quantity. After going through my materials page for a while, I decided to use milk, cheese, and hearty salmon. The reason I picked these is because they all have real-world equivalents and they show the full item in the icon. The next step in this method is to figure out the quantity of the item. Let's start with milk. This bottle of milk looks fairly small while it's in your inventory, but when we go to the Hateno Village General Store, you can see that it is much bigger than it appears. I confirmed that the milk dropped on the ground is the same size as the milk sold on the counters, and then I got to work. To measure the amount of milk in the bottle, I'm going to use these coordinates that appear below the map. 1 unit on the coordinates represents 1 meter in real life, which will allow us to measure the bottles. There are a couple of problems with this, though. The first one is that we would need to be perfectly aligned with a cardinal direction, or else when we move, the distance that is shown on the coordinates will be less than the actual distance traveled. I solved this problem by heading to the South Lomi Labyrinth and climbing on this wall that runs perfectly in the north-south direction. This set me pointing directly west. The next problem is that just placing one bottle of milk on the floor and then measuring it with this system won't be very precise at all, because the bottles are definitely smaller than 1 meter. To account for this, I jumped onto the wall and figured out where Link's left foot is when this number changes, and placed down an upside-down cart with a stake to mark the spot. Then, I placed down 10 milk bottles in a row against the wall. I then got onto the wall, moved Link to the right, and kept my eye on the Z-coordinate. As soon as my foot passed by the final milk bottle, the last number changed, meaning that 10 milk bottles were approximately 4 meters long. By dividing 10 by 4, we now know that the diameter of the milk bottles is 0.4 meters, or 40 centimeters. But wait, there's a gap between the milk bottles when placed on the ground. This happens because the hitbox of the milk is larger than the actual model. I realized that I needed to find the gap between the milk bottles before I could calculate the volume of the milk. I took a picture of 2 milk bottles and measured the gap in between them. I found that 25% of what I was previously calling part of the milk bottle was actually just the space between them. Using this percentage, I was able to calculate that the milk bottle was actually 0.3 meters wide. Then, by using pixel measurements on the milk icon, we can see that the actual milk inside the bottle is only 50 pixels wide versus the 60 pixels of the bottle. By scaling 30 down using this ratio, we can determine that the diameter of the milk in the bottle is 25 centimeters, and since the height of the milk is also 50 pixels, 25 centimeters is the height of the milk as well. Using these numbers, we can solve for the volume of the milk. This gives us 12 liters, or 3.2 gallons. Based on the average cost per gallon for whole milk, this gives us approximately $13.7 for this bottle of milk. Next up, I did the Hateno cheese. I used the exact same method as I did for fresh milk and got 45 centimeters for the inside radius of the cheese wedge and 15 centimeters for the height. I calculated the full wheel of cheese to be 95,425 cubic centimeters. Then, by dividing this by the number of slices per wheel, we get 32,285 cubic centimeters of cheese per wedge. I am guessing that this is cheddar cheese, but if there are any massive cheese nerds watching, please correct me in the comments. 13,632 cubic centimeters of cheddar cheese is approximately 28.45 pounds, which would cost $170. As the last material, I did the hearty salmon. After a bit of searching, I determined that the hardy salmon is likely based off of the sockeye salmon. It was fairly difficult to find a conclusive price for this thing, but after quite a bit of searching, I determined that the fish is likely worth around $130 US. Next, I had to get the in-game prices for all of these items. I got the price of the milk and cheese from the Hateno General Store, and I got the price of the salmon from Zora's Domain. Then, by dividing the real-world prices by the in-game prices, I got an average of $3.7 US, or 2.9 pounds per rupee for materials. The next part of Hyrule's economy is the housing market. One of the largest side quests in the game is about helping Hudson with various tasks to prepare his daughter to fly off to Gerudo Town. Once you finish with this, you can start another quest where you are able to purchase rooms for a house and assemble them to create a so-called dream home. You can take these different movable rooms and slap them together to make a house, or in my case, a dumpster fire, that you can walk around in. This is an incredible side quest that I could talk about a lot more, but how does this help us calculate the cost of a rupee? Well, there are two different times that you spend money during the house building process. The first time is buying the different rooms that you use to build it, and the other time is when you buy the land that you actually build the house on. Since the actual rooms themselves don't really have a real-life equivalent, I'm going to be using the price of the land. When you go to buy the land that you build your house on, Ronson sells it to you for 1,500 rupees, but she mentions that this is just a discount for helping out their family and that the normal price is 3,000 rupees. So now that we have the price, we need to know how much land you actually get. I went to my house and measured the lengths of the plot by looking at the coordinates. I went and got 4 coordinates from each of the 4 corners of the plot. The plot isn't aligned perfectly with the cardinal direction, so I couldn't just subtract the numbers from each other. Luckily, by using the distance formula, you are able to calculate the dimensions of the plot to be 42 by 36 meters. Then, by multiplying the length and width, I got 1,512 square meters. Now I need to figure out how much this land would cost in real life. The obvious problem with this is that the price of land changes a lot depending on location. In Tears of the Kingdom, your house is located in the Akala region near Terrytown. After a little bit of searching, I determined that Maine was a decent stand-in for Akala. They both have quite a few similarities, including the fact that they are both in the most northwest region of their respective nations, and being next to a large ocean. I tried to find average prices for undeveloped land in Maine, but even then the prices varied quite a bit. After hours of searching, I noticed that one number kept popping up quite a bit, $45,000 for an acre. This might not be entirely accurate because there are so many variables to account for, but it should be close enough. 1,512 square meters of land in Maine would be about $17,550. Then, by dividing this number by the price of the plot in Tears of the Kingdom, we get $5.85 per rupee. Then, by taking the average of this and the value of the rupee I got from the prices of the items, I was able to determine that 1 rupee is worth $4.75, or 3.75 pounds. This means that it would cost nearly $100 to spend a night at a stable and almost $1,500 to purchase the Hylian shield. I was actually really surprised by how consistent everything was with their real-life prices. It never fails to amaze me how all the different systems in this game work together so flawlessly. I could honestly talk about all the tiny little details and mechanics in this game for hours, but I'll save that for another video. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, because I am a channel that is trying to grow and likes help get this video recommended to more people. I will try to make similar content to this in the future, and you will most likely only see my videos again if you are subscribed. Thank you, and have a nice day.